Hello, welcome to Talking Shit. My name is D. Andre. As you can see, I'm trying to let you see my shirt that I'm wearing, and I really mean this. And if you have any topics that you want me to discuss, just mention them in the comments section of viewing this video, this broadcast, this episode, this segment. I wanted to talk a little bit this morning about Trayvon Martin's case. Trayvon Martin was shot to death brutally by an adult that he obviously had a scuffle with before he was murdered. And a lot of times when you get into some of this, West Side Story ideology about the situation, the bottom line is that a life was taken. And if we're going to live in a society where you kind of just have to, go for what you know, bro, and then just kind of stand your ground based on the fact that you were a clown and you didn't do what we do now when it comes to disagreement, we have a discussion, or we try to be diplomatic, or we try to ask questions, or we try to follow direction. When the 911 operator said, "We don't need you to follow him," that obviously, based on what we have seen, is not enough for some people. We live in a world where one wants to be recognized. Martin Luther King Jr. used to call it the drum major instinct. Well, when you see your name in print, or in our case, in day and age, when you see your name or whatnot on the internet or whatever, it triggers something inside of us. So I just feel that George Zimmerman is in big trouble. Apparently, some more witnesses have restated some things, and it's gotten a little sloppy, and I think it's because it took so long to arrest him that the prosecution's office really did just as poor of a job, I think, as a police department on handling this situation. It was not necessarily even the police. They were going by what the top-heavy... See, a lot of things are top-heavy now, and when I say top-heavy, I mean the people who make the big money, the administration, the supervision. The cops were only doing what they were told. In fact, one policeman involved in this case was really, adamant about what Zimmerman had done. And, he was even told, not by other officers necessarily, but by the top brass, to back off, And so, because of all of this, the case looks a little messy. That may not work in Trayvon's favor, I believe, because of just this lack of perspective when things drag out. I noticed that the Zimmerman camp doesn't want a speedy trial. They want to drag it out, and this is all a part of the process that causes things to lose its substance, when it's dragged out and it's prolonged, So I just feel that George Zimmerman, is a big guy, and Travon may have known how to fight back, but it wasn't enough. He still shot him. Now, was it in self-defense? Probably so. And the reason why he was defending himself is because he had bullied someone, and they pulled his whole card, and Travon was working that ass, and George had to shoot him. I don't think that Travon would have beat George Zimmerman to death, but we won't know that because George Zimmerman killed Travon. But I don't really think that. I think what I believe is that Travon was trying to get away from him, which is why the incident did not take place at the truck, which George Zimmerman had originally lied about. I grew up in the projects, And I know kind of how it is when you're running in between those should we call them aisles? Because there's rows. Certain housing complexes are built like like camps. And I just believe that if Travon was going to beat George Zimmerman or harass George Zimmerman or rob George Zimmerman, he wouldn't have been carrying iced tea and a bag of candy, and he wouldn't have been several yards away from the man's vehicle. You know? So hopefully the circumstantial evidence, along with some honest testimony from witnesses, will in fact help George Zimmerman realize that what happened that night was basically because he ignored law enforcement or the powers that be over the phone. If George Zimmerman would have listened to the 911 operator, none of this would have happened. Yes, he would have been able to profile Travon like we all, like that's a regular thing. Profiling women, profiling minorities, profiling the youth, profiling people of color and Latino, and that we were taught to profile. The policemen are not the only people that profile. People will profile you when they see you in a store. They automatically size you up for what their fear thinks you are. So regardless of all of the profiling, I believe that if George Zimmerman would have listened to that 911 operator, he wouldn't be, standing a trial. So, and those two parents, Travon's dad and mom, would still have their beautiful son, character defects included. They would have their loving boy. And somebody his age should have had some flaws. But apparently, according to his brother, someone who Travon knew and loved, he was a kid that had, his life and his mistakes and his love and his whatever and his little girlfriend and all of that. I mean, imagine what it must be like for that girlfriend to have heard some of the stuff over the phone and still not be able to see that man at least be arrested. She's got to be devastated. I just think about his mother, the mom who's following the rules and sharing the life with the dad at another location. And then that father, Travon's father, how he must feel about how it even happened near his place. And, so there's a plethora of things that need to be examined here. But I think the simple fact of the matter is that, George Zimmerman should have listened to the 911 operator. Even though he was scared, even though he was trying to do his little neighborhood watch community responsibilities, he in no way should have ignored that 911 operator. Okay, and we've spent 8 minutes on that. I want to spend a couple of minutes on, talking shit. These broadcasts come out of my frustration with how the president is being treated. And the reason why I love Barack Obama is the 99% people can't control him. The 1% people can't control him. The Republicans can't control him. The Democrats can't control him. But it doesn't mean that he's out of control. What it means is that he's involved with the life of an American person. And I'm really grateful that no set group of people have full control over Barack Obama. The gay community has no full control over him. He is an individual, and he is acting on what he believes we in this country want him to do. And if he were able to portray each group of persons in our society here, he would be neurotic and in a nut ward. So he has to do bits and pieces with help from guys like David Axelrod, who I admire and respect. And he has to try to kind of do all things for all people, which is really kind of impossible. So I see Barack Obama as an educated individual who's trying his best to be the president of the United States. And he's gotten no real help from those who really just can't understand compromise. If you don't understand compromise, you're not going to like this president. If you don't understand how to cooperate and have Zen moment when society tells you you're supposed to be angry, you're not going to like this president. If you're not somebody who wants women to have a fair shot to earn their fair pay, to be getting the fair amount of respect that adult men and women need to help our children, you're not going to like Barack Obama. If you believe in big government and just spending money for the hell of it because you got a special interest that likes you, you're not going to like Barack Obama. He's not pleasing Wall Street. He's not totally satisfying Main Street. But he is on the block. And he won that election. And he deserves our respect. And he is a good person. And if you don't believe me, you interview with permission from those parents, those girls on that basketball team, that he volunteers and tries to help. If you don't believe Barack Obama is a real person, talk to some of those men who went after Osama bin Laden and got him. If you don't believe Barack Obama is a good person, you talk to members of the gay community who don't have a lot of power or control or money and ask him to dehumanize them. If you don't believe in these kinds of things, then you're not going to even vote for Barack Obama. So Barack Obama needs to do his job. Barack Obama needs to enjoy his life, and Barack Obama needs to be reelected. If it takes you 100 years to walk through the jungle, it probably should take you at least 50 years to get out. And this country was in complete and total chaos. If you think it's bad now, even though it was already bad, I'm grateful that it's not as bad as it could have been if we would continue to have stayed on the wrong track. If we would have continued to let Wall Street dictate our government to the point of everybody getting theirs, but the people who don't have nothing. And so I resent people talking shit about my president, but they have their rights. And if they don't agree with me, they're not going to like these podcasts. They're not going to like this stuff. There's stuff that I don't like. That's why I'm talking. So if you don't like something, you do something that means something. You don't just sit around and complain and not help out. And I have one example of that. I am at 13 minutes. I try not to go too long because I don't want to talk a long time because I can't. But the other day, a few weeks ago, I think it was about a week ago, Barack Obama was on The View. And that little gal on there, the one that's the Republican puppet, Elizabeth, she handled herself the way that I want to see people handling Barack Obama. Now, she talks a lot of shit when he's not there, and she doesn't agree with his policies. And I hate to say this somewhat because I don't like her, but the morning that she was on there, the morning that Barack was on The View, Elizabeth handled herself like a decent woman. She handled herself like she lived in this country. Elizabeth handled herself like she was an American. Elizabeth respected our president. She wasn't rude. She asked her little questions that were, of course, kind of adversarial, but she did it in a kind, respectful way. And I didn't know she had it in her. So right on, Elizabeth, even though I don't like you, because I don't like what you stand for, and sometimes you can be a little nasty, and I don't like what happened with that exchange with Rosie several years ago, because you turned into a victim. But what I do like about you is that you know how to be a woman, a lady with some dignity and some class. And when our president was on TV, you were very respectful. You were very nice. I mean, I watched it again and again online, and I saw no rolling of the eye, because a lot of times you roll your eyes. Like when that woman was on there, Kathy, I forgot her name. She has the G list or the B list or whatever, the A list. She's a comedian, and she's got this really weird relationship with the gay community. But when she was on there, Elizabeth did not practice the principles I'm talking about. Someone Elizabeth dislikes probably even more as far as policy. She was more respectful. Barbara didn't have to tell her to shut the hell up. And I was proud of her. I couldn't believe it. I've gained a new kind of almost